Welcome. Good afternoon. I am Denise Simmons with the HCI Solution. I would like to thank you for joining us today for our Report Designer education sessions on creating a Report Designer extraction report. Now, while a few others are joining us, I will give us a little bit of background on our presenter today. Today's presenter is Dan Collins, our VP of Operations. Dan has been at the forefront of EHR development and customer care for over 21 years while working at Meditech in various roles. Dan has led data service teams that supported all of Meditech's platforms. He's a technically skilled leader and software developer with a career dedicated to best practices, customer care, and maintaining positive long-term customer and vendor relationships. And with that, I will turn the meeting over to Dan to continue with our presentation for Report Designer education sessions on extraction reports.
Thanks, Danae. Hello, everyone. Can everybody see my screen okay here? I have a little Meditech session up. Last week, we did an education session on building your first Report Designer report in 10 minutes. We're going to kind of continue on from today. We're going to do an extraction report. Last week we did a regular report that's intended to be printed. It's okay if you didn't attend last week's session. You know, it's not required. There's no prerequisites to this course. But you know, last week we wrote a billing report that will list off particular patient's charges for a given date range. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to write the same report, but we're going to write it in an extract format, a download format, which would be useful for, you know, if you're asked to write a report that can be imported into Excel. It's great for creating spreadsheets or, you know, other tools like that. So we're gonna dive right into information systems, customization, MAT, Report Designer, and process reports. You know what I'll do is I'll quickly show you the report that we wrote last week, which was a billing report. Charges by service date. And you can see that this type of report, the format was a standard report, and you know, had a fields on it like the patient's location, registration date, transaction amount, charge code. I'll give you a little example of what the output looks like of this report. So if we go back 30 days and print the charges for registrations for the last 30 days. This is a test system. You know, kind of lists off each patients that were registered in the last 30 days and what all their charges were. So today I'm going to show you how to write the same report, but in a download format. And last week we talked about how to look at the different, use the different tools that Meditech has to find where the data lives in the system. So I'm not going to get into that this week, but we are continuing to offer these education sessions at the HCI Solution. So if you go to our website and click on customers and then click on webinars, you'll see a whole list of upcoming educational sessions that we have there. All right, so let's get into creating our new extract report. So we're going to go into Report Designer and click on New. We're going to write another billing report. Bar HCI, and typically the convention is to start off the mnemonic of the report with the application that you're writing it for, and generally, you know, the next thing we put in by convention is, what organization is responsible for the report. It could be the hospital, it could be some other company like HCI. In this case, we're gonna put in HCI, charges, and then a little description on, what the report is actually intended to do. Our HCI charges download. One unfortunate thing is you can't write a standard report and then copy it into a download format. It's not allowed, so you can't easily, move the different formats of reports, between each other. But we're going to go over to the format and change the standard to export. And you can see that the screen changed a lot. The user interface for export reports is, they really designed it to make it really easy to create reports in an export format. And NPR Report Writer, for those of you that are familiar with it, it didn't have anything like this. You'd have to write, if you wanted to create a report to create a comma delimited text file, you had to write a regular report, and then you had to insert a bunch of commas between each field on the report picture, or you'd write it all in a macro. But here in Report Designer, they make it very painless to create all different kinds of download reports. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the advanced mode. Gives you a little bit more flexibility in being able to create rules and other things that are only available in the advanced mode. I have to enter in a few more required fields. We're going to write this report so that it can be opened in a spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do is you have the ability to select how you want your fields to be delimited. So they could be tab separated, space separated, but we're going to do today is we're going to define our own delimiter. We're going to do a comma delimited download file. It's basically just a text file. Each field is separated by a comma, and if we name the file with the .csv extension, then when we open that in a standard spreadsheet like Excel or OpenOffice, those programs know exactly how to import those files and load them into the spreadsheet. Record delimiter, that just basically means at the end of our record, what do we want to separate our records? In this report, we're going to do one line, one row per record. So standard text files have a carriage return line feed at the end. So we're going to select that. What do we want to do with our text fields? Do we want to surround them with quotes? Yes. And that's useful for, let's say you have a name field in your report. Let's say we have last name, comma, first name. If you didn't do the quotes, the spreadsheet program might think that last name and first name are two separate columns, and we actually want them together in one column. So you select the double quotes, and it'll surround all string values with quotes. So whatever application you're going to be pulling the download report into won't get confused. And then this has okay, we have a blank record, what do we want to do? Do we want to hide the delimiters or show the delimiters? In this case, for this report, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to skip that. Fixed width is if, you were doing, you maybe had a specification for a file that outlined, this in characters 1 through 10 is going to be one thing, and characters 11 through 20 is going to be another field. Those are the cases where you would need, a fixed width or a fixed size report. But we're not going to be using that in this example. The header, what's going to print? Do you want a header row in the download file? in this case, I'm going to say I want the field labels to be the header row, and that'll just be, when we pull the spreadsheet up into we pull the file into our spreadsheet program, that'll be what's listed on the top row. Do we want the header to just display on the first row, or before every detail row, or all? Actually, I'm not actually sure what the all does. I haven't tested that one yet, but typically you do the first row. If you're going to have a header, you put it on the first row. If anybody has any questions, feel free to speak up and interrupt me. It's no problem. You have to give each record name, each record a name. In this case, we're going to start off with the registration main record. So I'm going to just call this record name Reg. And it'll make more sense as to how this is laid out once we get into it. We're going to select the fields that we want to be included in the report. So I'm going to do a lookup here. It's better to not type. You can type something in here, but what's going to happen is if, like, let's say I type in location here, it's going to look through the whole entire system to find all fields with the name location in it. That could take a little while. So we don't want to do that. Instead, we're going to do a lookup here and select objects and go under reg account. And we're going to start adding some fields to the download report here. One thing we want on the report is location. And the blue plus indicates that this field points to another object in MAT. This points to the location dictionary. So this right now, having this selected means I'm going to include the location mnemonic. But if I click on the plus, it's going to expand into that whole MIS location dictionary. You can see the MIS loc object here that indicates that, we're looking at that location dictionary object. So I also want to select the name for the location. So I'm going to scroll down, select the name. And, the cool thing about this lookup is that I don't have to exit out of the lookup. I can keep selecting however many fields I want to. And I can search for, I want to include the patient's room on the report. So I'm going to include room here. And I can click on the selected button now, and it shows me all the fields that I've already selected. I also want the patient's bed. I'm going to include the patient's bed. I want the patient's name, of course. And I am going to do a separate first name and separate last name column. So I want to do first name and separately last name. We're going to do the patient's account number. That's it for the registration fields. Now, I'm going to save that, and you could see that the record here is reg account main, and the detail is set to yes, meaning that's going to be the detail record in the report. Now, if I go in here and let's say I want to start adding some billing charges. If I do a lookup here again, I go to objects and I try to, if I try to change reg account, system won't let me. So how do I include billing charges on the report when it's only let me select a reg account fields here? What the report wants you to do is to create a new record name. And I'm going to show you something first. I'm going to show you what happens when we give it the bar name for the record. And that's going to have a certain behavior on the report that we don't want. But I'm going to create it like this now just to show you what the output looks like. And then we'll go back and fix it later on. So we have to enter in a new record here to enter in fields from a different object from billing. So I've entered in the new record name there, and now I'm able to go under fields here and go under objects and change the object to bar account. Objects. Oh, let's see. Why is it still doing bar? Why is it still doing reg account there? Interesting. I did click on advanced, didn't I? Oh, I didn't. I'm still in basic mode. Basic mode in Report Designer only allows you to work with one data object. In order to pull in fields from other applications and other objects, you need to click on advanced. I thought I clicked on that earlier. I must not have. So now we can do bar account. And then we can enter in some of our transaction fields, like transaction amount. We want the charge code. And again, you can see the blue plus here. This will give us the charge code mnemonic. I also want the charge code name. So if I click on the plus here, it'll bring us into the bar CDM dictionary. And I want to select name here to also include the name. I also want to include the journal and the service date. Just the mnemonic for the journal is fine, and the service date. And that should be good for the charges. And that's all we need to define what fields we want the report to include. We don't have to go and draw a picture. You don't have to put every field on the picture and you know, tell Report Designer where we want the fields. It knows that this is just going to be a download report, and it knows where to put the fields. Skip over to general. The title doesn't really matter here because it's not going to. Title not. We're not printing this report out anywhere. It's not going to show anywhere. You know, we talk about some of these other fields in our introductory Report Designer education sessions. But for selects, we want this report to list off the charges for a specific registration date range. So we're going to go in and enter in our selection criteria, reg account, and that's going to be our registration date. And in Report Designer, you always want to select fields that have the index icon next to them. That means those fields are the I in the yellow box indicates that the field is associated to an index, and you want to use those fields when possible because then you can use an index that contains those fields, and it'll make your report run a lot faster than if you had not used fields that are contained in an index. And we'll select our index in a minute. So we want to do from registration date, GE for greater than or equal to, and that the way you read this is, okay, the registration date on the screen here is going to be greater than or equal to the registration date on the record that we're searching through. And then I'm going to add the same field again because we need to do a through registration date. And we'll do a less than or equal to here. We're going to add facility here because most of the indexes that are available on one of the first keys in the index is facility. So if we have that first key defined, it'll make the report run a lot faster. So we'll do reg account facility. And we'll do an equal to here. Give it a new block. All right, now's when we select the index for our report. And Report Designer's gonna search for the records that we want to include on the report by using the index. And you always want to try to select an index that has the most green fields, because that means, all right, these fields, these keys in the index match selection fields that we've built here on this screen. And Report Designer in this lookup, it tries to order the indexes by the ones that it thinks will be the best fit for your report. And you can see here that we have the sort defined by rank, and it's how that they're ranked by Report Designer. So this is probably our best index here, facility and registration date. That's a good one. I'll select that. Also, I only want to include inpatients. So I want to enter in selection criteria to just say, look at my inpatient type patients. When this particular report is not for outpatients. So we'll enter registration type on the report. Now that I've added a registration type, there might be a better index that it also includes registration type. So we'll take a look at that. But I always want to hard code this report to print for inpatients only. So what I can do is click on hide to hide that field, and I can type in IN for inpatients, give it a value, and this will tell Report Designer that we're only going to look at registrations that are have a registration type of in. I can double check the here. Let me delete that index and do another lookup to see if anything different came up in my index lookup now that I've added registration type. Yeah, there's a couple of indexes here that include the registration type in the index, but these are ARM indexes, so I'm not sure. These may be ARM specific things, so I'm going to skip those, and I'm not going to use registration type index because that doesn't include a date in it. I want to only look at records that are in a specific date. So the original index we had is still the best one. And then our sorts, facility registration date. I want to add a sort. Our active category doesn't really matter for our sort for this case. I don't really want this report sorted by registration date. I want it sorted by just account number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave facility, and I'm going to insert the account number here. Account. So it's going to sort by facility and account number. And that's pretty much it. We're gonna save this report as final and run it. Back to edit. Now it's not displaying in the lookup here because our lookup is by name. And I typed in the mnemonic here. So we're going to click on report bar charges, download. All right, I'm going to try running the report for the last. You have to select where you want to download the report to. I'm going to download it to a folder on the desktop here and give it a name. I'm going to call this bar charges download.csv. Create the file. And then do we want to open the file after creation? I'm going to say no, we'll open that ourselves. And do we want to create a unique file name? If there's another file name that has the same name, you can tell the system to automatically create a new one. If you're doing a download file that has PHI on it, we may want to, this is just a test system, so I'm not going to do that now, but we may want to, if you entered in a password here, then Report Designer would create a self-extracting zip file that's password protected with this password. So in order to view the contents of the file, you would need to know this password, which is great if you're going to be creating download files that have PHI in them. So we're just going to go run our report for the last 30 days. I'm going to select the facility here and click on export. And that was pretty quick. So we're going to pull up, browse to that folder where we created the file, and you can see the file here. Windows knows how to open the file already because it has the .csv extension. I can open this in any text editor and just see, okay, it's just a bunch of fields and text with commas separating them, but I can pull this into, when I double click on this, this computer will use OpenOffice to pull the file into its spreadsheet program. Now, this doesn't look quite right. What's happened here is like, okay, we see our location, our name, the room, bed, count number, but then when we start getting to the fields from billing, the charges, the report put the charges on the next line, which is not what we want to happen. What we want to happen is we want these charges to list on the same row as the other information. So I'll explain that. What happened here is that Report Designer saw that this was a second record name, so it enters a record delimiter after the reg record, which is the return, and that's how we get this record entered in on the second line. And remember, we couldn't enter in our billing charges, our billing fields, in the same record as our registration fields. Because notice that each record is associated to a specific record in the Meditech system. So the first record here is the first record name is associated to reg account main, so we can't enter in billing fields there. So the way we get these fields to appear on the same row, the way we get the billing fields to appear on the same row as the registration fields is we just have to give the record name the same name as the record above. And then Report Designer will put all those fields on the same line, even though it's from a different object and different record in the Meditech system. So we'll click on Create to create a new version of the report. And we'll run it again. In Report Designer, if you already have a selection screen up and running, we don't have to launch a new one if we make edits to the report. You only have to launch a new one if you've made changes to the selection screen. I'm going to change the name of this. Give it a V2 for version 2. Let me close the spreadsheet and run this again. There's our second one. So that looks much better. All the data fields are displaying in the columns that they're supposed to be displaying in. Some of these, you're getting some blanks here because some of the transactions from billing are not charge transactions. They're other types of transactions. So we can put in a selection criteria to ignore those transactions. We also might, it depends on what we're looking for, but we might, instead of having blank cells here, we might want to repeat the location, the name, and account number here, depending on what you're going to do with the spreadsheet. We could do that by changing the detail section, changing the detail record of the report to the billing record, and then it would repeat these cells. So I'll go ahead and I'll show you how to do that. We'll add a selection filter for charge type transactions to only list the charge type transactions here. Another thing I'll show you is the date. This is, of course, this is year, month, day format, but spreadsheet program doesn't really know what to do with this. If I try to convert this cell and format the cell to a date, like that looks good with the slashes, it gets confused. It just doesn't know what to do with that. It doesn't recognize that as a real date. So I'll show you how to fix that as well. Anybody have any questions so far? Okay. Let me show you how to change the detail. All you have to do to change the detail record here is click on this cell here, the gray cell under the detail column. And this says, changing the detail record will break all links and indexes. You know, that's fine. We'll go and re-enter the indexes. We're going to use the same index we used before. By facility and registration date. We want to add our selection criteria to only include charge type transactions. So I want to look at transaction type. And we'll make that one a hidden, well, do equals. And we'll make that one a hidden field as well. And hard code that to CHG for the charge type. And lastly, I'll show you how we fix the problem we had with our dates not being in a format that the spreadsheet program can recognize. So each time we have a date, what we want to do is select the date field and then go down to where it says field format. And you can do a lookup here and change that from internal to external. And what that does is it just adds the slashes to the date so that you know, Excel or OpenOffice or whatever recognize the field as a true date. I think we had our registration date up here too. Oh, yep, that was in the other record. Oh, maybe we didn't have the registration date. Maybe it was just the charge service date we had. Okay. All right, we'll run create on that. We'll see what we get now. Close this window. Give this a number 3. Click on export. It's funny, I ran into this earlier too when I was testing this. You know, I think it's because I might have changed the index on the report. Might have affected the selection screen. So what we'll do is we'll click run again to bring up a new one. Desktop and temp download 2. We'll do a version 3. $30 days ago. Export. Oh, let me move. Now this one is a little different because I changed it changed the sort, so now it's including all the patients, but it seems to be sorting not in the right order. It's not grouping all of our account numbers together. They're all intermingled. Let's take a look and see why that is. And if we look at sorts, that's why it's just sorting by transaction number. But what we want to do here is make sure we get an account number in there and put that first. So first we sort by account number and then transaction number. All right, let's try to run that again. All right, that looks better. So we filled in all those blank cells, and now we're grouping by account number like we wanted to. Our dates look good now, and we're not including any blank billing transactions. This is a dollar amount here, but you know we can format the cells to say, okay, this is currency. Make it a little bit bigger. Oops, I selected the wrong thing. Not a percentage. Currency. Thought I did that. Okay. And there's a lot of zero charges with 0 cents, but you can see here this one is $44.50. So that looks good. Pretty straightforward, right? That's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions? All right, let me show you our website here real quick. Keep an eye on the, if you go to the hcisolution.com, and then select customers and webinars. Most of you probably already know about this page since you're here now, but keep an eye out. There's additional education sessions that we're offering on a bunch of different report designer topics, and we're going to continue to add additional classes like this one. So keep an eye on this, and if you like this session, continue to sign up for others. Danae, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, thank you everyone for coming and your time. And as always, if you need anything or want to learn more about our products, you can contact us through sales@thehcisolution.com, and we will answer any of your requests. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.